Hello, it's 9 p.m. in Earth. This time to English New Edition. For tonight headlines, we have the head of state returns to the country. The Somali Prime Minister arrived in Djibouti to an official visit. For the international scene of football, PSG will find Bayern Munich in the League of Champions. Welcome to our newsroom. The President of the Republic returns to the country after attending the COP27 and the Green Middle East Initiative Summit. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh, returned to the country this Tuesday early evening following his participation in the separate summit of the COP27 and the Green Middle East Initiative that took place in Sharm el-Sheikh, dedicated both to the problems of global warming, huge sources of multiform damage from natural disasters such as drought and floods, to economic destructions through the degradation of ecosystems with, among other untenable consequences, migration flows, water stress, soil erosion, proliferations of disease. The respective summit of the COP27 and the Green Middle East Initiative have not failed to serve as a relay to create greater awareness of the highly damaging consequences of climate change. The work of this meeting have quickly turned into the real booth for the exchange of visions, strategies, and experiences on viable project for the remissions of the use of fossil fuel, the main cause of global warming, and in the platforms of definitively binding resolutions regarding the establishment of rigorous protocol for assigning maximum threshold of greenhouse gas emissions and international financial solidarity for the benefit of communities most exposed and most vulnerable to the consequences of climate issue. President Guelleh delivered a speech at each of these two summits. At the COP27 summit, devoted most of his speech to the urgent need for the international community to subscribe collegially and in a binding manner to an efficient process of solidarity, particularly financial solidarity for the benefit of African countries suffering the few forces of the drastic consequences of climate east, reaffirming of the Republic of Djibouti to remain a strong supporters of regional cooperation in the fight against global warming, and took advantage of this forum to highlight the great importance of the initiatives of the Green Middle East Summit launched by the brotherly Kingdom of Saudi Arabia last year, and its vocation is to constitute primary factors and decisive additions to the regional battles against climate change. It should be recalled that as part of the trip to Sharm el-Sheikh, the President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh, was accompanied by an important delegation including the Minister of Environment and Sustainable Development, Mohamed Abdul Qadir Musa, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, the Ambassador of the Republic of Djibouti to the Arab Republic of Egypt, and Permanent Representative of our country to the League of Arab States, Mr. Ahmed Ali Barre. The 27th Conference of the Parties of the United Nations Framework Conventions on Climate Change, COP27, started this morning in the city of Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. More than 100 health state and government of the world's countries and several high officials such as the chairman of the African Union Commission, Moussa Faki, as well as the president of the European Union Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, are participating in this high-level conference. The president of the Republic, Ismail Omar Guelleh, also took part in the conference along with several of his counterparts who came in large numbers to attend the conference, which focuses on global effort to address the impact of climate change on the world, especially in developing countries. Upon his arrival at the International Conference Center in Sharm el-Sheikh, which hosts this summit, the President of the Republic was welcomed by his Egyptian counterpart, Mr. Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, and the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, then the head of state, Ismail Omar Guelleh, as well as the leaders of the countries of the world, took part in a family photo before the opening of the 27th conference which officially started in the enclosure of the big meeting room in Sharm el-Sheikh. Several topics were on the agenda, including containing the warning under the bar of 2 degrees and ideally 1.5 degrees addressed in the negotiations. Also, the issues of compensations for damage caused by climate disasters will be obviously in the official agenda for the first time. This summit is an opportunity for the countries of the world to put pressure on the developing countries so that the major powers keep their commitment made at previous editions at the COP27. The International Conference on Climate has values as platforms for dialogue and interactions of the countries of the world on one of the main issues, in this case, the fight against the effects of global warming on the agenda of contemporary societies. Occurring every year, the main objectives of this conference is to achieve an efficient solidarity of the nations of the world in the face of the multiform and highly damaging consequences of global warming, and therefore to assert a principle of compensations and financial justice for the benefit of the most vulnerable communities, including Africa. In an important speech delivered at the podium of this conference, the President of the Republic indicated that the world is now facing several challenges, including climate change, loss of biodiversity, pollution of air, water, and soil, the most threatened and most urgent being, without question, is warming that endanger the survival of man. Listen to the head of state.
Excellence, Monsieur le Président, Cheikh Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, President de la République Arabe d'Égypte.
Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank the President of the Arab Republic of Egypt, His Excellency Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, and the Egyptian people for the warm welcome we have received since our arrival in this beautiful city of Sharm el-Sheikh. My thanks go to the new Executive Secretary of the Convention, Mr. Simon Steele, who has made the necessary arrangement to facilitate our work during this conference. Finally, allow me to fully endorse the statement made by the President of Ghana on behalf of Africa and the President of Argentina on behalf of the G77 group and China. Mr. President, the world today is faced with several challenges, including climate change, loss of biodiversity, air, water, and soil pollution, the most threatening and urgent being, without question, global warming, which threatens human survival. We are constantly reminded on this fact by the numerous disasters of which our population are regularly victims. This is sad because, despite the numerous summit decisions and commitments, our actions remain below the level of urgency and mobilization required. Worse, the quantity of greenhouse gases emitted continues to increase and its consequences, and paradoxically, Africa, which contributes only marginally to global warming, is the most affected by this phenomenon. As far as we are concerned, the Republic of Djibouti, due to its geographical position in the arid intertropical zone, is particularly vulnerable to the risks induced by climate change, such as floods, drought, and sea level rise. These risks are reflected in the scarcity of water resources, soil erosions, and damage to infrastructure. The impacts of these hazards are particularly detrimental to the water, agriculture, and public health sectors in Djibouti. For this reason, we have carried out a water supply project between Ethiopia and Djibouti, and a seawater desalination project that will allow our capital, a major economic and demographic hub, to free itself from the vagary of the climate and strengthen the resilience of the urban population in securing access to water resources. Djibouti has also built several dikes and dams to protect our people and infrastructure from flooding. Mr. President, in its national determined contribution, Djibouti has committed to reducing CO2 emissions by 14% by 2013 compared to the baseline scenario. To achieve this, we have implemented the electricity interconnection project with Ethiopia, which has reduced the country's CO2 emissions by more than 115 kilotons per year, and we have initiated several energy projects, geothermal, wind, and solar energy projects to substantially reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Also, as part of its contribution to the fight against climate change, not more than a week ago, Djibouti organized a World Summit on Climate Research, which allowed researchers from different countries to exchange on the issue of climate change. It is in this spirit that we have created a regional observatory on climate change that will allow African researchers to contribute to a better understanding of climate change. In view of the many non-binding commitments, Mr. Chairman, we are not surprised by the lack of progress made. We therefore call for a binding decisions of COP27 that recognizes the specific needs and circumstances of Africa. We also reiterate that access to additional and predictable funding remains critical to implement mitigation and adaptation action. Therefore, we urge developed countries to meet their commitments to mobilize $100 billion per year. Finally, we call for 15% of this funding to be dedicated to adaptation. It is time to move from rhetoric to actions by drastically reducing greenhouse gas emissions and mobilizing the necessary funding to increase the resilience of population to climate change. Thank you for your kind attention.
The President of the Republic receives a delegation from the International Fund for Development Agricultural on the sidelines of his participation in the Conference on Climate Change. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh, received in his residence in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, the President of the International Fund for Agricultural Development, President of the International Development Fund, Mr. Alvaro Lario, the President of the Republic and the CEO of the International Fund for Agricultural Development, have several points, including the ways and means to consolidate the partnership between Djibouti and the Fund of FIDA, which is an international organization that aims to finance and accompany farmers to adapt to the impact of climate change. The Summit of 27 Conference on Climate Change and its negative effect on the development of the developing countries were on the agenda of the discussions between the head of state and the President of the International Fund for Agricultural Development and his delegation. The President of the FIDA was accompanied by the two Vice Presidents of the Fund as well as his close relatives, Vice President of the Fund, Djiboutian, the Ministers of Foreign Affairs, and the International Cooperation, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, the Minister of Environment, Mohamed Abdel Qadir Muzahalam, and the Ambassador of Djibouti in Egypt, Mr. Ahmed Ali Barre. For the COP27, Africa denounces an injustice. The financial issues is central to the COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. On the second day of the summit, most African and developing countries leaders called for more resources to deal with the consequences of climate change. According to the COP report, countries in the South will need more than 2 trillion per year by 2030 to finance their climate actions. Kenyan President William Ruto called on Mondays for the recognition of the special needs of Africa in the fight against global warming, underlining the nightmare experienced by Africans and also the access of the continent in this fight. Africa represents less than 3% of global emissions. The Somali Prime Minister Hamza Abdi Barre arrived late this morning in Djibouti for an official visit of 48 hours. His first visit to Djibouti since his appointment. Upon his arrival at Djibouti International Airport, the Somali Prime Minister was welcomed by Prime Minister and Head of Government Abdulqadir Kamil Mohammed and several members of the government. The Somali Prime Minister is accompanied by a large ministerial delegation, including Abdulrazak Umar Mohammed, the Minister of Petroleum and Natural Resources, Muhammad Ali Haga, the Minister of Interior, Khadija Mohammed Diriye, the Minister of Women and Human Rights. After the welcomes for the Djiboutian side, Djiboutian Prime Minister and his Somali counterpart had a meeting in the VIP lounge of Djibouti International Airport, where talks took place in a fraternal atmosphere. The discussion is focused on the cooperation between the two brothers, Djibouti and Somalia, and the ways and means to strengthen it in the future. After the reception is at the airport, an extended meeting is scheduled between the two parties for further discussions in order to boost the multi-sectoral cooperation between the two countries, which share common points and are linked by mutual interests. During his visit, the Somali leaders Hamza Abdi Barre will hold the talks with the highest Djiboutian officials authority. The delegation of the Somali leaders will also visit the main infrastructure of the countries, including the regional observations and research center of the environment and the ports. The two countries are always supported, and following the terrorist attack of October 27, the Republic of Djibouti has sent a large medical and surgical brigade composed of dozens of doctors to treat the many injured in the terrorist attack from Mogadishu on October 29, 2022. The Prime Minister, His Excellency Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed, held a bilateral meeting with the Somali delegation led by his Somali counterpart Hamza Abdi Barre. The Somali Prime Minister is accompanied by a large ministerial delegation, including Abdulrazak Umar Mohammed, the Minister of Petroleum and Natural Resources, Muhammad Ali Haga, the Minister of Interior, Khadija Mohammed Diriye, Minister of Women and Human Rights. The discussion is focused on the cooperation between the two brothers countries, Djibouti and Somalia, and the ways and means to strengthen them. The technical advisors of the Ministry of Women's Affairs benefited in the future. An expanded meeting between the two parties for further discussion is to boost multi-sectoral cooperation between the two countries, which share commonalities and are bound by mutual interests. In his speech, the Djibouti Prime Minister recalled the different links that strengthen the relationship between the two brotherly and friendly countries. He also welcomed the delegations in the second country, and for his part, the Somali Prime Minister said that Somalia and its people is facing terrorist attacks, and Djibouti government is the first friendly country that has responded to the call for international assistance, and this we are grateful and indebted to indicate. On the Djiboutian side, the bilateral meetings was accompanied by the Minister of Economy and Finance, Ilyas Musa Dawale, the Minister of Interior, Said Nur Hassan, the Minister of Women and Family, Amun Osman Aden, and the Minister of Communication, Radwan Abdullahi Bahdoun. For his part, the Somali Prime Minister, in his speech, Mr. Hamza Abdi Barre, said, I would like first to thank you for the warm and fraternal welcome given to me and my delegation since our arrival in Djibouti. This visit illustrates the family relations and fraternal ties between Djibouti and Somalia. We will take this opportunity to strengthen cooperation and relations between the two friendly and brotherly countries. We will have the opportunity to work on further cooperation in the security, economic, and social file concerning the terrorist attack perpetrated by the terrorists, where hundreds of victims have perished. Our government thanks the Republic of Djibouti for its noble humanitarian positions in helping Somalia in these critical circumstances by sending doctors and medical aid to relieve the victims. He added that this visit reflects the strong characters uniting the two countries. Now listen to the Djiboutian Prime Minister and Head of Government, His Excellency Abdulkader Kamel Mohammed.
Ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, let me start by expressing my heartfelt gratitude to my brother Hamza Abdi Barre, Premier Minister of the Federal Republic of Somalia, for accepting my invitation to carry out a visit to Djibouti. Allow me to welcome you and the important delegation accompanying you today to your second country, Djibouti. This visit illustrated the strength of our historic ties and unite our two nations. It also comes at a time when your country was recently struck by a terrible and coward terrorist attack which claimed many innocent lives. Mr. Prime Minister and dear brother, rest assured that the Republic of Djibouti will always stand by your side against this enemy who have no consideration for human life. I thank you for welcoming the Djiboutian doctors who came to help their Somali brothers in your office as soon as they landed in Mogadishu. I also want to pay tribute to His Excellency, the President of Somalia, Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud, for his continued leadership and determination to preserve the security of Somalia and its territorial integrity against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Dear Prime Minister, I'm also pleased to recall your leadership during our last meeting at the TICAD Summit for your constant vision for enhancing the capacity building of Somalia National Army. We are convinced that they will eventually be the only ones capable of ensuring the territorial integrity of Somalia. In recent years, Djibouti and Somalia have repeatedly engaged in large-scale cooperation to preserve national security, from the exchange sensitive information to training servicemen and women at the police academy or sending troops to secure Hirshabelle. I believe that our two countries must continue to maintain an open dialogue in order to advance our mutual interest on crucial issues. It is the interest of both our nations and also common desire to perpetuate peace and security in our region. Somalia and Djibouti have always demonstrated strong political ties to achieve these goals as well as other important issues.
In response to the appeal made by the Somali president to the international community following the double suicide attack in Mogadishu on October 29, the chargé d'affaires of the Embassy of the Republic of Djibouti in Mogadishu handed over a second shipment of medicines to the Somali Minister of Health, Dr. Ali Haji Aden. The ceremony of handing over these gifts of medicines took place at the international airport of Mogadishu in the presence of officials from both parties. It should be noted that the Republic of Djibouti sent last week a medical team of 20 specialists to Mogadishu to participate in the care of the injured following the terrorist incident which killed more than
100 people. In a brief statement, the chargé d'affaires of the Embassy of the Republic of Djibouti in Somalia stressed that this medical support comes in accordance with the instructions issued by the President of the Republic, Ismail Omar Guelleh, in response to the appeal of the President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud to the international community to accompany the efforts of the Somali government to treat the injuries. For his part, the Somali Minister of Health, Dr. Ali Haji Adan, expressed his thanks and gratitude to the Republic of Djibouti for its unwavering support for the Somali people, especially in this difficult circumstance. Today, we receive the second wave of medicines donated by Djibouti for the benefit of those injured following the double suicide bombing in Mogadishu. This is a noble gesture that reflects the fraternal relations between the two peoples, but also the solidarity of Djibouti with Somalia. Djibouti's medical and surgical assistance team is making a huge contribution to treating and operating on the most seriously injured in the Somali capital, Mogadishu. Once arrived on the scene, the team of doctors dropped their bags and started the tasks of providing first aid to the injured in the Medina hospital. Since a few days, they continue to perform complex and minor surgery. In these images, we see the team of the Dr. Sharmak Mustafa, who is in the middle of an operations on the patient hit by shrapnel. The team is putting external fixators on the firm fracture and very delicate operations. Let's record that these doctors, including specialists and paramedics, went this Thursday, November 3, 2022, to Somalia, where the rescue operations were launched by the country's authorities in order to participate in the medical assistance following the deadly terrorist attack that hit the capital Mogadishu, with a toll of more than 100 dead and more than 300 people injured. The Minister of National Education and Vocational Training, Mustafa Muhammad Mahamoud, presided today in a graduation ceremony for 4 winners of the first class of the Bachelor of Railways. The event, which took place at the commercial high school, was attended by the Minister of Labor in charge of Formalization and Social Protection, Omar Abdi Said, the President of the Tianjin Vocational University for Railway Technology, and representatives of the China Civil Engineering Construction Company and the Djibouti Ethiopian Railway Company. Had the opportunity for the Minister to praise these brilliant minds who have done a year in China and 2 years by video conference with the University of Tianjin. Note that these young people who have obtained their bachelor degrees in 2018 are the pioneers of the railway licenses opened at the high school with the partnership of the Tianjin University. This partnership between the city of Tianjin and MENFOP has allowed the technical trainings of the ETFP trainers in logistics and international trade, the railway techniques trained in China. This teacher teaches courses with the reference materials co-prepared by professors from University of Tianjin. The Minister of Labor, Mr. Omar Abdi Said, said that it is a special pleasure for me to have the opportunity to pass the first batch of a certificate for the professional and technical licenses of the limited sector and graduated from the university in China. This is a special privilege for me, and speaking on my own behalf, I would like to thank the people and government of China for their willingness to cooperate with the government led by the President of the Republic of Djibouti. The opportunity for the Minister of National Education and Vocational Training, Mustafa Muhammad Mahamoud, to warmly thank the Chinese government for its valuable multiform support to the government of the Republic of Djibouti and MENFOP in particular. He recalled that the Chinese investment in the construction and development of infrastructure from the Luban workshop and the High School of Emitat training young Djiboutian
highly qualified and capable of ensuring the operations of new road, rail and port infrastructure. He paid tribute to the visionary policy of the President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh, which aims to develop transport and communications infrastructure in accordance with the strategy of regional integration and enhance economic development. The first class of professional licenses who are being trained at Lika in the Luban workshop will complete their training at the end of this year, so 2022. The Minister of Health, Dr. Ahmed Rabil Abdillah, presided over the launch of the capacity building sessions for midwives working in the polyclinics and medical hospitals in the interior regions. The launching ceremony of these training sessions was attended by the UNFPA representative, Ms. Aisha Ibrahim, and the Director of Mothers and Child Health, Ms. Fatima Ali Abdallah. As for the objectives of this training, it is to strengthen the skills of this first cohort of about 13 midwives in order to ensure a better quality of reproductive health services at the level of first-line maternity hospital regarding emergency obstetric and neonatal care. In his speech, the Minister of Health stressed the importance of periodically conducting these sessions to upgrade the knowledge and skills of midwives who are in charge of the health of the mother and the newborn. The Minister assured that the enhancement of the skills of provider will also be accompanied by the strengthening and modernization of the technical platforms in all health facilities in the country. In his speech, the Minister of Health emphasized that the capacity building of medical staff is a priority for his department, especially in maternal. These training activities contribute to the strengthening of our health systems, which is the goals of the health department, thanks to the overall improvement of healthcare services, and in particular the assurance of the quality maternal and neonatal healthcare services at all levels of the health pyramid. As part of the celebrations of the day dedicated to the African writers in its second session, the power and collective of authors and artists Djibouti made immersion in the highest cultural literary and artistic national institution, Agwaide Tower, under the supervision of the Director of the National Agency for the Promotions of Culture, Mr. Mohammed Hussein Douale. After the library and the National Archives, the group did not fail to visit the Memorial of the Dam, a highly symbolic place in terms of cultural, political, and historical heritage of the Djiboutian nation, a highly place where the narratives of the pivotal struggles for independence are recorded, a strong moment where the literatures and the cultural artistic activities were founders of the mobilizing teams to free themselves from the colonial subjections. Thus, that afternoon, the restrictions of work and reflections conducted the prosperity of the cultural, literary, and artistic growth. In the framework of the proximity health and mobile team of the Medical Hospital Center of Tajura moved yesterday in the sector of Palho, more precisely Hagande. This team, led by Dr. Dimbio, was composed of midwives and nutritionists and ophthalmologists, technicians, nurses, and immunization agents. The locality of Hagande is located in the sub-prefecture of Torra, about 160 kilometers from the capital town, and has no health center. The population of these localities benefited from the medical consultation for adults, the integral management of the infantile disease without forgetting the consultation for the pregnant woman, reinforced by the family planning. Medical team proceeded to the vaccinations of children under 5-year-old who had to travel a distance of 13 kilometers to reach the nearest health post. So it was under the Palavo trees, which became a mobile clinic for the occasions, that the healthcare activity took place. The inhabitants of Hagande, both old and young men and women, came in mass to express their gratitude and appreciation to the Minister of Health in general and to the medical team of Tajura in particular. They expressed their wishes to be able to benefit from these kinds of care of regular basis. During this outing, about 100 pregnant and breastfed women were able to benefit from iron supplementation family planning on advices. And it should be noted that at the same time, vaccination against COVID-19 were carried out for volunteers after professional explanations of the need to be vaccinated. These kinds of activity are part of the proximity health policy, which is the base of the government health policy. The team of Dr. Dimbi of the CMH of Tojora carries out in each district localities, and the next outings are planned for the Dora sector. For the international scene, football, PSG to meet Bayern Munich in Champions League. Paris is not varnished, and as expected, PSG has inherited a very big piece. Bayern Munich is the last 16th of the Champions League, which will offer another big games with the replay of 2022 final between Real Madrid and Liverpool, by finishing in second place in Group H behind Benfica Lisbon. The French champion club could have expected the worst during the draw at UEFA headquarters in Nyon, Switzerland. In the end, it was no spared with the German behemoth, 6 times winner of the competition. This is it for the news. Thanks for watching us. Have a good evening.